Born on December 18, 1863 in Graz, Austria, Franz Ferdinand was never meant to rule. His cousin, Crown Prince Rudolf, was heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, but in 1889 Rudolf died in a murder-suicide at Mayerling. This shifted succession to Franz Ferdinand's father, Archduke Karl Ludwig. Then in 1896, Karl Ludwig died, reportedly after drinking contaminated water. With that, Franz Ferdinand became heir to the throne of Austria-Hungary. His upbringing was strict. He was raised in a rigid military environment, trained in strategy and discipline. Unlike many royals, he had little patience for politics and bureaucracy. In 1900, he wed Countess Sophie Chotek, a noblewoman but not of royal blood. Emperor Franz Joseph only allowed it under one condition: any children from the marriage would be ineligible for the throne. Franz Ferdinand agreed, but resentment lingered. Despite his personal battles, he became a key figure in the empire, advocating for modernization and federal reforms. But his ideas and his marriage made him enemies in both Vienna and abroad. Franz Ferdinand's biggest political idea was restructuring the Austro-Hungarian Empire. He wanted to give Slavic groups more power, creating a federal system to ease ethnic tensions. This made him a threat to Hungarian elites, who benefited from the existing system. They saw him as a danger to their influence. Nationalists in Serbia despised him for a different reason. Austria-Hungary had annexed Bosnia and Herzegovina in 1908, enraging Serbs who wanted the territory for a greater Serbia. Franz Ferdinand's plan to give Slavs more rights within the empire could have undercut Serbian ambitions. Groups like the Black Hand, a secret nationalist organization, saw him as an obstacle to their goals. Meanwhile, tensions in Europe were boiling. Germany and Britain were locked in a naval arms race. France wanted revenge for its defeat in the Franco-Prussian War. Russia, claiming to protect Slavs, backed Serbia against Austria-Hungary. The alliances forming across Europe meant that any conflict had the potential to spiral out of control. Within Vienna, Franz Ferdinand was isolated. The emperor disliked him, the court distrusted him, and the military saw him as too cautious. His reforms threatened too many powerful interests. While he prepared for the future of the empire, his enemies were already planning his downfall. Franz Ferdinand's enemies worked against him in the shadows and in public. The Hungarian elites blocked his federalization plans at every turn, using their influence over the emperor to keep the system unchanged. In Vienna, government officials spread rumors that he was unstable, unfit to rule, and even too friendly with Slavs, an accusation that made him unpopular among the German-speaking elite. Assassination threats were constant. Serbian nationalist groups like the Black Hand saw him as the single greatest threat to their vision of a greater Serbia. Intelligence reports warned of plots, but Franz Ferdinand largely dismissed them. He believed that as long as he stayed careful, he would be safe. His personal life only fueled resentment. His marriage to Countess Sophie Chotek meant she was excluded from imperial functions, humiliating him in court. He refused to be without her, leading to public mockery from nobles. Their love was real, but it made him an outsider within his own government. Despite the hostility, he continued pushing his vision for reform. But every step forward was met with resistance. By 1914, he was still heir to the throne, but surrounded by enemies who wanted him gone, one way or another. Gavrilo Princip was born on July 25, 1894, in a poor Serbian family in Bosnia and Herzegovina, then under Austro-Hungarian rule. His childhood was shaped by poverty, oppression, and resentment toward the empire that controlled his homeland. Like many Serbs in Bosnia, he grew up hearing stories of past Serbian glory and the dream of a unified Slavic nation free from Austrian rule. As a teenager, he moved to Sarajevo for school, but was expelled for his radical political views. He later traveled to Belgrade, Serbia, where he was drawn to nationalist movements. There, he became involved with the Black Hand, a secret organization committed to Serbian independence. They saw Austria-Hungary as the enemy, and Franz Ferdinand, who sought to integrate Slavs into the empire, was a direct threat to their cause. Princip's frail health kept him from joining the military, but his determination to fight for Serbian nationalism never wavered. When he was given the opportunity to strike at the empire's heart, he took it without hesitation. By 1913, at just 19 years old, Gavrilo Princip had fully embraced the cause of Serbian nationalism. He saw Austria-Hungary as a foreign oppressor and believed violence was the only way to achieve independence. When he learned that Franz Ferdinand planned to visit Sarajevo in 1914, he saw it as fate. To him, the Archduke wasn't just the heir to the empire, he was the man who could solidify Austria's control over Slavic lands. If Franz's reforms succeeded, Serbian unification might never happen. That same year in 1913, Franz Ferdinand was 49 years old, a seasoned military leader and statesman. While Princip was meeting radicals and dreaming of revolution, Franz was preparing for what he saw as the inevitable, becoming emperor. He spent much of his time at his country estate, isolated from the court but still strategizing ways to reshape the empire. He also devoted himself to his family, spending time with his wife Sophie and their 3 children. While one man was planning for his future reign, the other was planning how to end it. By early 1914, Princip and his co-conspirators were training for the moment that would shake the world. June 28, 1914, a date already filled with meaning. For Franz Ferdinand, it was a diplomatic visit to Sarajevo meant to strengthen ties in a tense province. But for Serbian nationalists, the day held deep significance. It was St. Vitus Day, marking the anniversary of the 1389 Battle of Kosovo, a sacred moment in Serbian history tied to their struggle for independence. That morning, Franz Ferdinand and Sophie arrived in Sarajevo to cheering crowds. They traveled in an open car, despite warnings of possible danger. The route was published in advance, giving conspirators a perfect opportunity. Princip and his fellow assassins positioned themselves along the motorcade's path, armed and waiting. The first attempt came when Nedeljko Čabrinović threw a grenade at the car. It bounced off and exploded under the vehicle behind them, injuring several officers. The Archduke's driver sped away, and the plot seemed to have failed. After attending a scheduled reception, Franz insisted on visiting the wounded in the hospital, but miscommunication altered the route. As the driver made a wrong turn, the car came to a stop, directly in front of Gavrilo Princip, who was standing outside a cafe. In an instant, history changed. The series of coincidences was staggering. If the grenade had succeeded, the plot would have ended there. If the driver had stayed on the correct route, they would have passed by safely. But fate or misfortune placed Franz Ferdinand and Princip in the same place at the same time. After the failed grenade attack, Gavrilo Princip believed the mission was over. He wandered the streets of Sarajevo, frustrated and defeated. He stopped outside Moritz Schiller's cafe, deep in thought. He had risked everything for Serbian independence, but now it seemed like history would continue without his mark on it. Then fate intervened. As he stood there, he saw something unbelievable, the Archduke's car, turning onto the very street he was on. A mistake in directions had brought Franz Ferdinand directly in front of him. The car slowed to a stop as the driver tried to correct the route. Princip couldn't have planned a better opportunity. In that moment, everything he had worked toward came into focus. He stepped forward, took aim, and carried out the act that would shake the world. Within minutes, he was wrestled to the ground and arrested, but in his mind, his mission was complete. The strange twists of that day, the failed grenade, the wrong turn, the unplanned stop, made the event feel almost unreal. 2 men, born worlds apart, connected in a single moment that set the stage for a global conflict. News of the assassination spread rapidly. Austria-Hungary was outraged. Franz Ferdinand had been unpopular among the elites, but his murder was an attack on the empire itself. Within hours, blame fell on Serbia. The Austro-Hungarian government saw this as the excuse it needed to crush Serbian nationalism once and for all. Gavrilo Princip was arrested immediately. Too young for the death penalty, he was sentenced to 20 years in prison. Weak from tuberculosis and harsh conditions, he died in 1918, just months before the war he helped ignite came to an end. Serbia denied direct involvement, but it didn't matter. Austria-Hungary issued an ultimatum with demands Serbia could never fully accept. When Serbia refused one condition, Austria declared war on July 28, 1914. The alliances in Europe set off a chain reaction. Russia, seeing itself as Serbia's protector, mobilized against Austria-Hungary. Germany, Austria's ally, declared war on Russia. France and Britain, tied to Russia, were pulled in. Within weeks, the world was at war. The assassination of Franz Ferdinand was the spark, but the fire had been building for years. Nationalism, imperial ambitions, and military alliances turned one act in Sarajevo into the beginning of World War I. Thank you for watching. For more content like this, please like and subscribe to help this channel grow.